Year one of life in the SEC is just around the corner for Boomer Sooner, helping us talk all things Oklahoma and discuss a debate that he and I have had both on the air, off the air, regarding the Sooners, specifically their 2024 slate, maybe even beyond. Good friend Travis Davidson, he's a radio host on The Ref in Norman, also a contributor on Oklahoma Insider, going to be doing a lot of stuff around Norman, covering the Sooners. Travis, what's going on, man? Appreciate you taking the time. Glad we were finally able to do this. Obviously, you and I chatted on The Ref. We've chatted off the record, now chatting here on the airwaves, talking all things Oklahoma, man. What's up? Appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, no doubt. Appreciate you having me on. I know, we had you in our place, if you will. We had home field advantage there on The Ref when we had you on with Tyler and I. So happy to play a road game. Excited. I've heard road games are crazy in the SEC. So this is my first road game. So I appreciate you, making time for me. I know you guys are crazy busy right now, covering an entire conference. And as that conference relates to the entirety of not only the college football landscape, but the sports and culture and life landscape in general, I know you guys are super slammed. So appreciate you having me on, no doubt.
And Travis, that's a great segue into where we want to start with this, because I believe it was maybe a couple months ago, maybe a month and a half, something like that ago. Either way, you had me on, and obviously the talk all summer has been Oklahoma joining the SEC as it should be, and the excitement there, but also the challenges that Oklahoma is going to face, right? Like it or not, Texas and Oklahoma both come in the league. Texas is getting all this hype. With Oklahoma, it's question marks, and we see that with the over-under win totals in Vegas. I think Texas is 10.5. Oklahoma's is 7.5. And the schedules have been compared, right? Texas has a much more manageable SEC schedule. Oklahoma, it's agreed upon, has a much more difficult SEC schedule. And so when you guys brought me on, you asked me the question about the week in, week out SEC grind. And that's something that's just asked by people about, and I'm sure Oklahoma fans have heard it about. Yeah, I don't know if you're quite ready for the SEC grind, if you're ready for that week in, week out challenge of playing in the best conference in all of college football. Mind you, this is an Oklahoma program that has done a lot of winning over the years. So I want to get your take on it, and I want to hear your stance on it, because, can we make too much of it to a degree? I think it's possible, but I think there's a real thing in the SEC when it comes to just the week in, week out challenges. And it's not just about playing Alabama. It's not about playing Georgia, LSU. It's about those games against Kentucky, South Carolina, Mississippi State, where even the teams in the bottom of the barrel in the conference, they've got a couple NFL guys and anybody can jump up and beat you on any given week. But I know you've got your takes on the SEC grind, how it's, I don't want to call it a spin zone, but there's a different way to look at it to where it can actually be an advantage playing a more difficult schedule than, say, playing a sleepy Big 12 schedule. So I'll let you take it from here, expand. Thoughts on first the chatter you've heard all offseason, the warnings, if you will, to Oklahoma about the SEC grind, the schedule, and your thoughts on that, and maybe, again, your perspective of why you think it could actually benefit Oklahoma this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when Oklahoma fans first heard that, the move was going to happen, I think part of it was, the excitement of, first and foremost, probably the matchups, right? Being able to go, especially the fans that travel, get to go to all these iconic places. Like, you kind of get tired going to Lubbock over and over, you know what I mean? They're probably throwing tortillas at me from Lubbock right now, just dissing them. But it's just, you get a little tired, going to some of these places. Like, I had a great time in Ames, Iowa, but it's not quite the same, as it will be, going to the Swamp, or going to Jordan-Hare or anything like that. So, I think that was the initial excitement. And I think part of the excitement after that was, man, we've been hearing from Arkansas fans, Tennessee fans, Florida fans, Kentucky fans, Mississippi State fans, Ole Miss fans, that if they were in the Big 12, that they would have won 14 conference titles too. That it's just Anybody can do it. We play in the SEC. So, if we were in your sleepy conference, as you call it, we would have been just as dominant. Not the case. Not the case, probably. Many of these teams haven't even, I know Florida aside, but many of these teams have not been to the SEC championship game, and they've been a conference member for a long time. But they'll blame it on the schedule, right? Texas A&M and Missouri walked in and fared pretty well initially. Now they've had struggles since, and now Missouri had a good season last season. A&M's been recruiting at a level they've seen more commitment from their athletic department and donors than they ever have before. So we'll see what Elko can do. But they didn't come into an absolute just getting shredded like everybody said they would, and those weren't even the Big 12's best teams. So I do think that's funny. I think it's funny when you look at the overall talent. I feel like Oklahoma recruits at the level of basically everybody except Alabama and Georgia in the SEC, if not far above them. Texas recruits even slightly better than Oklahoma. So the talent is going to be there. I think the coaching staffs are star-studded. That both coaching staffs either had people hired away from their staffs by SEC schools this year, or SEC schools tried to hire people away from each staff this year. So they want our coaches, they want our players. I think people forget OU has never won a national title in a weak conference before. Maybe some younger fans, a lot of the Twitter trolls that have the burner accounts are, 16 years old, 19 years old. They don't remember anything. So I think the old Big 12, kind of the late 90s, mid-late 2000s Big 12 would go toe-to-toe with any conference, right? Nebraska was coming to their end of their dominant run. They had 3 national championships in the 90s. You had Oklahoma and Texas making national championship appearances in the mid-2000s, one winning a national championship in 2000, one winning one in 2005, them both appearing in 08 and 09 and 03 and 04. Like, they were in it when the conference was really good. It wasn't really until, let's be honest, Texas went on their decade of suck, as we call it around here, that really the conference started not performing on a national level to that point, right? Missouri had some good years before they went off to the SEC. Unfortunately, their best years, they ran into Oklahoma, and it didn't work out well for them. But, the conference really fell off from a national perspective. Sure, you had TCU make it to the national championship, but that seemed to be a bit of a flash in the pan. When the conference fell off, Oklahoma couldn't compete at the highest level because they weren't getting tested. When you make it through the SEC schedule and you make it to a playoff, cool. You might be playing a worse team in the playoff than you played, 2 weeks ago, or maybe in the SEC championship game, right? Maybe they say, "Oh my goodness, thank goodness, we don't have to play Alabama like we had to play last week in Atlanta, or we don't have to play this, that, or the other," right? So that would suggest that, and the SEC teams that make it out, they do so well because of that grind, right? The SEC grind that people talk about. But I find it interesting because, so you've got me on the pod right now. Say instead you had Nick Saban, and then in 2 days you had Kirby Smart. So say that was your schedule, right? SEC Unfiltered, this was your schedule. Nick Saban, 2 days later, Kirby Smart. Now, that's going to be big time deal, right? So rest the night before, right? Probably not going out and having drinks with the boys, the night before. Maybe you got to wake up and interview Nick Saban, right? You're going to go through, maybe you'll rehearse some questions, right? Maybe you'll bounce some questions off a buddy or something like that, because then once you get done with that, it's okay, I'm going to learn from that. Now I got Kirby coming up, right? I'm going to interview Kirby. This is a big time coach. He's on top of the sport right now. And I need to give it my best. Well, you probably would prepare differently than you would for me, right? I'm the Big 12 team in this scenario, right? I'm the local radio guy in Oklahoma, one of many local radio guys in Oklahoma. So I think that teams prepare the same. I heard an Alabama defensive lineman talking about, man, you don't get it. 1 week I had to play Laramie Tunsil, and the next week I had to play whoever that's also in the NFL. And I thought to myself, yeah, you probably prepared way different those 2 weeks than you would have if you were playing Popcorn Tech, because you have to be at your A game in the SEC. You have to, or else you will get trampled. And I think that's what I'm not saying the schedule is difficult. It obviously is. You pointed out NFL talent, right? There's more talent in the SEC than there is in any other conference. I don't want to hear it from the Big Ten. So yes, it is more difficult. And that's not the point of my argument that it's more difficult. The point of my argument is I think the fact that it's more difficult will cause Oklahoma to raise their standard so much more that you're not going to see the same Oklahoma that you saw losing one-offs to Big 12 teams that they were far more talented than. And I think it will get them to a level of focus and a level of intentionality down to their hydration, down to their preparation, their film study, everything like that, because they know they've got Tennessee at home. Then they've got to go play their first SEC road game at Jordan-Hare. So you just prepare a little bit differently when you have that instead of Baylor coming to town and then you go to Iowa State. Like you just prepare differently. And it's human nature to do so. If you've got a guy that runs a 100-meter dash in 10 seconds and he's running against guys that run 14 seconds, he's probably not going to set a PR right there. But you put him in the Olympics, or you put him, with like-minded people, or you put him, somebody's got a knife behind him and he's running, he's probably more likely to set his PR at that point than he would when he knows I'm faster than all these dudes. I might not even tie my shoes if I'm running against dudes that run 14-second hundreds. I'm a 10-second guy. So I think it's human nature to kind of look over some teams. And I'm not sure that there's a coach in America that can get everybody to dial in to an opponent that you're more talented than. And now that Brent Venables has that in his back pocket of, hey, man, SEC boys, it's different. I've played against these guys in college football playoffs and non-con. I recruit against these guys, and they're different. We have to get ready. I think hearing it so much is going to make sure that they dial in. I mean, you're seeing that. I mean, they talked about it. I mean, it's the best summer that Brent's had since he's been here, from the strength and conditioning, from the buy-in, from the film room, everything like that. It's just been better all year. And I think the quote-unquote SEC grind can be thanked for that a bit. But I think it's a bit foolish to say, hey, Oklahoma for some reason doesn't know that the schedule's hard. That I think that's probably the most annoyed that I've been is when, every content creator's done it at some point. Hey, I don't think Oklahoma's ready because you've got to play Auburn, Tennessee, back to back. Then you got to play Texas. Then you got to play Ole Miss. And then, they just list SEC teams as if we don't know who's in the SEC. Like, we signed up for this and we're like, bro, when'd you put Tennessee in the SEC? Alabama's here too? Stop it. Like you're insulting our intelligence as Oklahoma content creators, radio, media, fans, players, coaches, anybody. When people say, no, you don't get it, we have hard teams here. Because that's the whole point of going to the SEC in the first place. So my argument is not that there are no hard teams in the SEC. My argument is simply Oklahoma has historically performed better. And I think most people, due to human nature, perform better when they prepare better. And I think people prepare better when they're faced with taller tasks. And I think the task is as tall as it's been since the mid-2000s and for the Oklahoma program. And since they were going back and forth with Nebraska and the old Big 8, when they were just trading off winning national titles, I think the task is as tall as it's been since then. And I think Oklahoma will prepare better. They will focus more and they will rise to the occasion because they have the coaches, the talent, the structure, the culture, everything that can help them rise to that occasion. So that's my take on it.
And I think, Travis, the belief is there that Oklahoma's going to do that because they've always done that. I mean, Oklahoma, I don't know if people – I think it's interesting. I don't know. I thought this was a really funny moment at SEC Media Days when Nick Saban made the comment about, Texas isn't going to come in here and run the SEC. And I thought it was so funny because Oklahoma fans were screaming from the mountaintops like they didn't run the Big 12 like we did, So it's almost like being forgotten how proud of a program Oklahoma is. I mean, all Oklahoma's ever done is won, it seems. I mean, if there were down years, I'm not aware of them because I don't feel like Oklahoma really has down. It's funny. I joked with your co-host, one of your co-hosts, Tyler McComas at SEC Media Days. It feels blasphemous to pick Oklahoma to go 7-5. Like it is funny to me how like the Oklahoma folks we've interacted with on social media and everything. It's like you are insulting them picking that record. I mean, because Oklahoma hasn't gone 6-6 and 7. They just haven't done it.
Yeah, and it's funny because when Saban said Texas isn't going to come here and run the conference, I think that was two-pronged. I think the first prong that people think about is wins and losses, right? Conference championships. It is clear there is no – I'm not sure we will still have conferences by the time somebody catches Oklahoma in Big 12 championships. Like, I think the closest remaining is like 3 maybe, and we have 14. And you'd have to get – I mean, I don't know who's going to go on a run, but nobody's going to go on a run like Oklahoma did. So, I mean, this could be – I could be in my 60s before somebody just matches Oklahoma, and we'll have been out of the conference for 30 years. You know what I mean? So when it comes to who runs the conference, there's no question on the dominant side. I do think there have been, and Nick Saban would be keenly aware of this, considering that they went after Nick Saban to hire him in Austin, right? Texas's athletic department, the politics of it, tried to run the Big 12 when it came to the Longhorn Network and the TV deals and penalties. We all joke about the horns down being a penalty. Like, Texas fans will tell you, oh, we don't care. Rodney Terry sure cared when he went on complaining about it. Sam Ehlinger sure cared whenever he tweeted about how it offended him, and he would always remember everybody that would ever disrespect Texas by putting the horns down. Like they may not say they care, but the people that run their university seem to care. So when he talks about running the conference, A&M fans warn about this, right? The reason A&M fans don't want Texas in there, A, is because they're Texas's SEC team now. So they can say, oh, if you want to play in the state of Texas, but you want to play in the SEC, come to A&M. They can't say that anymore. But the other part was Texas A&M said, hey, one of the reasons we left the Big 12 is because Texas tries to run everything that they become a part of. They try and take it over from a control standpoint. So I think Nick Saban was speaking to kind of both of those things, because I think he's aware of the political side of running a conference, and I think that's what he was also speaking to, because there's no argument that could be made that Texas ran the Big 12 conference from a football perspective. There's just simply not.
Hmm. Travis, you mentioned and brought up a great point about the way that media or content creators or others have, warned Oklahoma fans or media or content creators or what have you about the schedule, and almost in a way of insulting intelligence. I've said this before and I'm someone, and I'd like to think when people look at our content with SEC Unfiltered, they see that, heck, we're happy Texas and Oklahoma are in the conference. Like, I love it. And we've done a lot of crossover stuff and interacting with you guys and Texas folks. But I know you've seen this, and I'm sure you felt this. And I found this fascinating that whether it's legacy media, whatever you want to call them, there's media, there's entities that it's almost like they want to put Texas and Oklahoma through like a hazing process a little bit. Like, have you felt that? Because like, I've seen that where I'm like, I'm like, you cover the SEC for a living. Even if you don't like Texas and Oklahoma coming to the league or whatever, you have your personal, like, this is your living to cover the conference and they're part of it. So
great for you.
Just right. So just, I would love to hear your thoughts on like, have you felt like this hazing ritual that is almost Texas and Oklahoma are both being put through for whatever reason?
Yeah, there's a couple different dynamics to it. You call them legacy media. The legacy media has always loved Texas because when Texas is good, they do well. They feel the same way about Michigan and USC. Like, it's
those are the college football better. College football is better when X is better.
Right. Exactly. Basically, they watched college football in the 90s and 80s, and they were like, oh, cool, this is the teams that we want to be good. Like, but yeah, USC and Texas, obviously USC, they want the West Coast involved. That's why Coward is stumping for Lincoln Riley as hard as he can. He does the same for Texas because Texas is a big brand. It's a massive brand. So they want it to be good. So it is interesting when you're in the same conference as them or when you're their biggest rival. Texas gets all the offseason love, but Oklahoma, they get love because they were the ones winning the conference. So they were, going to the playoff. They were winning the Heismans. They were doing this, that, and the other, right? More conference titles than any school in history. Like they were doing that, but they weren't in a vacuum with Texas. And I think that's what's interesting. This is the first season that Texas and Oklahoma and Texas have been in the same sentence so much because they're both entering the SEC. So we get the extra attention because we're moving to the SEC, but the legacy media is like, hey, remember, we got to talk up Texas. So we're entering the SEC, but Texas is put up on this pedestal. So we're entering the SEC in the conversation, but OU, they're like, oh, just step on them because we need to prop up Texas, but we don't want to prop them both up going to the SEC. So we're getting it from both sides. So there's a lot of different dynamics to it. I also think there's a dynamic that, like, there are a lot of fans in the SEC that now have to understand that they take a step back a little bit. Like, and that's not me being arrogant or cocky or anything like that. Like, Oklahoma is flat out a better football program than most of the SEC. Like, probably a dramatic majority of the SEC when you look historically. Currently, they're in better shape than a lot of the SEC. So naturally, if you've got teams that have been able to, talk crap about other teams and other conferences from afar because they've been able to beat their chest saying, hey, we're the SEC. We may be no good, but we're no good because we have to play the best teams in the country. Like now, like you've seen the videos of like the little dog that's barking on the fence and the gate opens and the big dog walks in and the little dog shuts up. Like they're still barking right now because there's been no football being played. But don't get it twisted. I mean, David Pollock came on and said, hey, Oklahoma's a better football program than Texas. There have been a lot that have come and said, hey, look, dude, Oklahoma's not taking a backseat to anybody. Paul Feinbaum came to Oklahoma and said, man, I forgot you walked through that trophy case and it's a little bit jarring because you forget just how successful they've been for the last 100 years. Now, what happened in 1955 is not going to win Oklahoma any football games in 2024. I mean, I never want that to come across. But Oklahoma is currently more talented, better coached, better culture, better facilities, or better, alignment from president to AD to everything than a lot of the conference. You've got two SEC coaches that are the two most likely best odds to be fired this year. And their fan bases are looking down their nose at Oklahoma. Like that's crazy to me. So I think that's where a lot of it's coming from. Is some of them are getting a bit uncomfortable with maybe their position as they now rank in the SEC. Josh Pate, said it, when he was talking about the bus seats. It's like Oklahoma and Texas are getting on the bus and they're taking your seat. You got to move back farther. Like it just is what it is. So it's been interesting because yes, we asked the question on our airwaves, and actually I want to pose it to you. If you were Greg Sankey, and you got to pick Oklahoma and Texas's record for this year, what would it be? What would you pick for each of those schools, knowing that you kind of want to balance? You don't want two new teams coming in and running your conference because that might make your legacy schools look bad, but you don't want your brand new shiny toys coming in and, looking like crap. And everybody goes, man, what a terrible investment, bringing these two over. So put on your Greg Sankey mask, and I want you to name me, and I would love for comments to do this too, because I think it's an intriguing question. What do you think Greg Sankey deep down wants Texas and Oklahoma's records to be this year?
So not a record prediction, but if he could magically make it happen where this is how I'd like
not what he thinks will happen.
Right.
What would be best for Greg Sankey?
Right. I would probably say some combination of, he wants both to win, I think. Maybe not both. I don't know that. I don't think Greg Sankey would want a Texas-Oklahoma SEC championship game. RJ Young seems to think that's going to happen, which, side note, interesting prediction. But either way, I think he'd like one of those two in the SEC title, and I think he'd like the other to at minimum go 8-4, 8-4, 9-3. So whether you want to say, Texas lives up to the hype. I mean, I think for the SEC, it would be a big positive for Texas to officially be back. I know Oklahoma fans don't want to hear that, but I think just like you said, it's such a strong brand. It can only be, you can't maximize the strength of the brand if they're not good. So I think if they were to live up to the hype this year, be in the SEC title, do you want them to win the SEC title? I don't know I don't know that that's necessarily the case. And then I think you want Oklahoma to be a 8-4, 9-3, knocking on the, maybe 10-2, be in the playoff. I mean, I don't, I'm not someone, I don't think it would be a knock on the rest of the SEC if like both teams made the playoff. I think I look at it more so it would show that the SEC was genius for adding those teams. Like I look at it more as like, look at how our investment paid off, Right. So I don't look at it as like you should, if you're an SEC fan, you should want Oklahoma and or Texas to suck, to prove a point about how tough the SEC is or how great it is. Everybody knows how tough it is, how great it is. It goes without saying. I think it will only prove that the investment was a very wise one that you made. So, ideally, again, I think that would be the finish would be one of the two in the SEC title, the other either knocking on the door of the playoff or sneaking in the playoff at 10-2. So,
okay. Yeah.
I think you want both to win.
Right.
I don't think it benefits anybody if, you have these two new additions and one of them massively struggles. I mean, Oklahoma goes, or Texas, whoever goes 6-6. I mean, congratulations for being able to tout how tough the conference is, but
right.
I don't know how that helps the conference from a conference-wide perspective. You know what I mean?
It helps the fans online.
The fans, right. But it doesn't – if I'm in Sankey's seat.
Of a bunch of teams that have never accomplished anything.
Right.
So.
If I'm in Sankey's seat, though, it doesn't help me in regards to pushing the conference forward. Travis, it's been a great conversation. Last thing, and I feel like this is kind of almost the theme of the convo. And I just want you to be honest here, man, because I think Oklahoma fans have done an Oklahoma media content creator, everybody associated with Oklahoma has done a really good job of holding it together. I give you credit, and I give Tyler credit, and I give many others. Done a great job of holding it together, being respectful, being kind, having just civil discourse. Mm-hmm. But the vibe I get is that Oklahoma people are pissed. Like I just when I talk to Oklahoma, you can just sense it that Oklahoma people are ready to burst at the seams and talk hella shit. Like I mean that's just how because I just again I get it. Oklahoma's been taking a lot of shots this offseason. The over under at 7.5 feels disrespectful to the people in Norman. Started at 6.5 feels disrespectful to the people in Norman. So, and like I can feel it in this convo. Not to say it's a bad thing. I love the passion. I love the energy. But there is definitely a sense of like chip. Like I don't know if there's a chip on the shoulder. There's a boulder on the shoulder. I mean, there's this level of disrespect where it's like the feeling of like when I see you, you're gonna get what's coming to you. Like it's right. That kind of vibe. Right. I'll let you expand on it again. I just think it's fascinating because again, y'all have done a great job of keeping things civil and peaceful, but I think I know how y'all really feel, Travis. I think I know how y'all really feel. There's an edge. There's an edge when we talk about this stuff with y'all. There's an edge.
Well, first and foremost, I'm a believer that every fan base has idiots, and every fan base has really cool people. So, I mean, I was just on a podcast last week with 2 Texas guys and an A&M guy, and we had civil discourse about our teams, and it was great. They posted on Twitter, and all the Twitter trolls were like, man, that loser, whatever, right? So, but yeah, I think what has cultivated that a little bit is think of what the national media has said about Oklahoma since December of 2022. Lincoln Riley to USC, right? You talk about Texas's brand. USC, now that, FS1 is out in LA and, ESPN moves out to LA and all this, and they want that West Coast because Lakers aren't making the playoffs. LeBron's nearing the end of his career. Maybe he could play till he's 50, I guess. But like they needed USC football to be good. So Lincoln Riley goes out there. Oklahoma looks terrible, right? He left you. He dumped you. He thinks you guys are going to stink going to the SEC. He took your Heisman Trophy winner. He comes out first year. Wins the Heisman Trophy. He wins 10 games, gets beat by Tulane, thank God, in Utah. Appreciate you, Whittingham. But, with that, we go 6-7, right? First year, Brent Venables. Texas beats us 49-0 because Dylan Gabriel's concussed. He can't play, right? You've got that whole year. So you've got Texas, your biggest rival, on a pedestal, getting that national brand awareness. USC just took your coach, won the Heisman Trophy. They're the two biggest national brands, maybe outside of maybe Notre Dame, they're at the top, right? And you're the one that's the butt of the joke for 2 years. What happens this year? Texas goes to the playoff. You know who beat Texas? Oklahoma. You know who, finished as first team All Big 12 quarterback? Dylan Gabriel. You know who's second? The mocked first round pick, Quinn Ewers. The mocked Heisman Trophy winner, Quinn Ewers, for the second year in a row. But nobody says anything about that. Nobody says that Oklahoma won. Nobody says that. Well, now more people, I guess, are coming around to it. But Lincoln Riley, looks like Oklahoma's starting to win that divorce over time. Lincoln Riley's trying to cancel the LSU game. He canceled the Ole Miss game a couple years. He's absolutely running from the SEC. He's talking about canceling the Notre Dame game. That's been a 98-year history. I think Oklahoma's winning that divorce. But when you think of how Oklahoma fans have been taking it on the chin from the national media for going on 3 years now, a lot of it is because the two teams that the media loves more than anybody in USC and Texas, Oklahoma's been the butt of the joke, and they keep on hearing it. And yeah, Oklahoma fans are absolutely ready to walk into every SEC stadium and be like, Daddy's home. And the team's got to back it up. I'm not going to be walking into press boxes in the SEC, kicking in the door saying Daddy's home. That's not my MO. But that's, I think, where it comes from. You know what I mean? Is they've been beaten down and disrespected by people from coast to coast talking about how Texas is all this, that, and the other. First of all, and you said you want Texas's brand to be successful because you can't take advantage of the brand unless it is. Tell the Big 12 that. They cashed checks on Texas's back while they were winning 5 games. They didn't care. The Texas brand will sell regardless. So, anyways, I think that's where it comes from, is Oklahoma fans are tired of national media leading every story with Lincoln Riley couldn't win at Oklahoma, so he came out to the better program, SEC, out here on the West Coast. Texas, Sark, is he the best coach in the SEC? Tell me why. And I know you did I think you did an SEC coach rankings at some point. I'm not sure. I see them all. I can't pinpoint them all. Where did you have Sark?
He was, I think, 2 behind Kirby.
Okay. Kalen DeBoer and him have gone head-to-head twice, and Texas had more talent both times. You remember those games, right?
I do remember those games, yes.
Okay. So
I think DeBoer's 3-0 against him.
I
think it's the record, yeah.
And that's kind of interesting, right? Sark spent 10 years in college football before he won his first 10-win season. And the 3 schools that he's been head coach at, Washington, USC, and Texas, he has a lower all-time winning percentage at those schools than each school's average all-time winning percentage. So he's been a below standard head coach everywhere he's been. But, hey, second best coach in the SEC, am I right? Am I right? Right behind right in front of the guy that has owned him his whole career with less talent. But I think that's what it is. We see that in the media. We see that, content creators. We see it in legacy media. And we really like football season. A lot of other teams, USC and Texas, they like talking season because they kill talking season. Oklahoma fans like football season. That's better for us.
Travis, I lied. One last thing, and I'll get you out of here. Lincoln Riley, where does he fall amongst most hated individuals for Oklahoma fans. I imagine he's got to be like the way Oklahoma fans talk about Lincoln Riley. Is he not number one? Like most hated people in Oklahoma football history?
It's kind of taken an odd like Kevin Durant arc. The Kevin Durant arc is we hated him when he left, but now that he really can't find a home, and if he gets his jersey retired, nobody knows where it's going to be, and he's, super teams aren't working outside of Golden State, like we kind of feel bad for him. It's kind of that way with Lincoln Riley. We hate him for sure, but now he's ducking SEC teams. He's trying to cancel the Notre Dame game. Bill Plaschke writes scorching headline after scorching headline about him. People are dogging him. So it's starting to kind of feel sorry for him, but yeah, I mean, he's nowhere around the program. Like you look at pictures of coaches on the wall, he ain't there. So I would probably say he's still number one, but it's softening a bit with the worst that he does.
Travis Davidson of The Ref, OU Insider, does a fantastic job of talking all things Oklahoma Sooners. Travis, this is a pleasure, man. I'm glad we did this. Excited to get to Norman. Let folks know, I just mentioned it obviously, but let folks know where they can check out all your great work.
Yeah, so KREF, the home of Sooner fans, it's 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. All Sooner talk, got all the big names of the OU on that station. The app is free in the App Store, KREF. We've actually now got SEC fans tuning in on the text line because SEC fans like to know what's going on with other programs. This is a phenomenon that we have not experienced before. So appreciate you couple Georgia fans that have been tuning into our show lately. But also OU Insider on the Rivals Network. I do some pregame stuff with them. We've got a new show dropping that is unique to the market. I don't think anybody does it even in the SEC markets. So OUinsider.com. Check us out over there. YouTube, the Rivals Network, everything like that. And then I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Travis Skoll, TravissSkol. So check me out. If I said something really stupid, at me. I got no problems with it. I'll go back and forth with you. So anyways, appreciate you having me on.
Travis, I appreciate you taking the time, my man. Let's definitely do it again soon.
Can't wait.